Hi,
Hey.
this is Stuart Nachbar with Educated Quest. Today I'm with Mary Beth Petrie. She is the Vice President for Enrollment at DePauw University in Indiana. That's D little E capital P A U W, not DePauw in Chicago, which I have covered before.
Mhm.
Uh, DePauw was recently honored as one of the newest of to two colleges that changed lives. It'll be the 45th or 46th school, depending how the folks at DePaul believe they are. And that's a very special honor. Colleges that change lives are schools that have many of the resources people associate with the most selective schools. Yet they are not as rejective as the most selective schools. These are schools with achievable admissions for a very good to excellent student, which have very good to excellent resources. Mary Beth, thank you for joining me this morning.
Thanks for having me, Stuart.
Congratulations to DePauw University on this on the honor. I've attended CTCL events and I've reviewed many of these schools. And the thing that stood out for me about DePauw is there are schools within the liberal arts college.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, the business and leadership school, I believe, opened last year
Hmm.
as an undergraduate business school, and there's the creative school, which took
Hmm.
music and took the visual, other visual and performing arts together. Can you walk me through the business school
Hmm.
and the creative school?
Hmm. Yeah. You know, so the way that we're talking about this at DePauw, we'll often use the phrase the three school model because this is a new model for us. And the President Lori White, when she arrived in March of 2020, interesting time to start as a new president. But she immediately started connecting with faculty and with students, even virtually at that time, to start asking questions about where we wanted to go as an institution. Um, and the idea of the three school model came out of this. At the time, we had two schools. We had the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and we had the School of Music. And the idea that we could take, create and launch some new schools, yet stay true to who we are as a liberal arts college by allowing students to have many degrees of freedom and explore courses and majors and programs, and also advance where we were with music, but sort of elevate the creative arts altogether. Because in the world that we are in right now, technology has really um, broken down some of the barriers that we might have historically thought of between the arts, right? And so we have students who are interested in writing, but they want to do that for podcasts. And we have students who are interested in theater, but they're more interested in applying that to their theater to film, music to film scoring, to so many different things that really fit together and that don't require our education system to be siloed or isolated into single discipline models. And so the idea of these schools is to foster an environment for greater connections, but not to separate them, which meant that we had to change our admission model and processes as well, because we are no longer asking students to select the school they are interested in when they apply to DePauw. They are simply applying to the university. They can tell us what academic programs they're interested in so that we can send them information and connect them with faculty in the areas. But we aren't saying, okay, Stuart, you said you were interested in the creative school, so now you are in the creative school. We're not doing that anymore. Students will, even at the point at which they choose a major, the students themselves will not be affiliated with a particular school. The major is affiliated with the school, but not the student, which really opens up this this focus on exploration, because we can easily have students who are interested in minoring in leadership and majoring in, music. We can easily have students who are who want to major in business analytics and maybe double major in linguistics and languages, right? And so this, even just this simple concept of students feeling like they are within a school and breaking that down and doing away with that concept is something that we think will be pretty a pretty awesome experience for students, because they truly are interested in so many things, and they just don't want to be held back or told that they have limitations on what they can do.
It's interesting what you're saying because, especially DePauw being in Indiana, Purdue is there, in Indiana University of Bloomington is there.
That's right.
Indiana Bloomington.
We're an hour between each of them. We are actually dead center between the two of them.
So, like, I'm thinking Indiana Bloomington, you have Jacobs and you have Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
Purdue has the big band, and they have very good business school. They have the sciences and engineering.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever go to a college fair in, say, Chicago and say, look, on your way between those two, stop by?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a lot of students who visit DePauw and also IU and Purdue in the same day, right? And because it is just geographically easy to do. And, I love that we have this kind of variety in our state. IU, Purdue, DePauw, and Rose-Hulman Institute for Technology, the four of us hosted a school counselor and independent counselor tour this spring. And so we're partnering together. And one of the things that we heard from the counselors on the tour was just how glad they were to see this kind of variety in such a short distance from each other, right? And so I think that kind of variety of options really gives the students here in Indiana, students in nearby states, more options to say, well, this path seems like this is a good fit for me, or that one seems like it's a good fit for me. This past winter, I was in Milwaukee on a panel next to a colleague of mine from Purdue. And it was really, we have so much respect for each other and work together often. And so it was just really interesting to hear, from a value standpoint, we're coming from the same place, but how we go about that with our educational structure at these two places is very, very different.
It's really interesting because DePauw seems more like a single doorway.
Mm-hmm.
And you could take your first course in computer science thinking you were going to be a music major and wind up with a double major
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
way. That would be awfully hard to do at Purdue or
Mm-hmm.
Indiana
Mm-hmm.
because they're separate schools and they have separate deans and administrations. And to get into business, if you didn't get into business at Indiana, you have some hurdles to leap to
Right.
be in a sophomore class to study business. But here you have a single doorway, and it's like, explore. We want you to explore.
Mm-hmm.
We want you to take the courses you think you might be interested in. And then there are some other requirements we expect you to complete, but we're not going to pressure you to finish them all right away because we want you to be able to make a decision.
Right.
And we want you, if you believe you have two interests and they're very opposite, we want you to pursue both of them if you can.
That's right. That's right. We also have some really unique fellows programs and an honor scholar program that's very unique. I'm not aware of any other colleges that have kind of the variety of options that we have with honor scholar and the fellows programs, and simultaneously have them so porous as their the entry points to it, right? So we have, for example, we have a management fellows program which we've had for decades and decades, and it has produced amazing executives and business folks for years and years. Same thing with media fellows, with science research fellows, environmental fellows, information technology. These programs are not associated with a major. You can be a, you can be a Spanish major and then pursue management fellows. In fact, that's encouraged. We do have a lot of students who are economics majors and are management fellows, but we also have a lot of students who are interested in the arts and want to do leadership activities within them. And so these programs are designed to give students applied learning experiences beyond the A major. So we'll choose a major, but students can also pursue these programs that will give them this additional experience and exposure and network that is not just within the major, and then that really opens the door for students to combine their interests as well. So that's another way to do it aside from just a double major.
Kind of interesting about saying that only DePauw. One of the things I noticed, this is the only school I've seen that has a farm and a nature preserve
Yes.
on the same
It's a
campus.
huge farm too. It's
Yeah.
10 acres.
This is like, it's like you're trying to get everything the big school has,
Yeah,
but there's a lot fewer people to
yeah,
share those resources. And there's
yeah.
sort of like this ethics institute, which is like a
Mhm,
house that
mhm,
I'd never seen
mhm.
at another school.
Yeah, it is. So the Prindle Institute for Ethics is also, you're right, is also pretty unique. And you're right, is situated at the nature park. So what a and right next to a reflection area, right? So what a perfect place to go, kind of think about philosophical questions and ethics. But it's also a place because that we bring in speakers, we bring in students from other colleges, right? We just had one this summer where we brought students together to the ethics institute so that we could explore the topics around freedom of expression. And in this year, being a presidential election year, is a really especially important year to talk about those issues. And so yeah, these kind of resources are pretty extraordinary for a college of our size.
The pause population has was interesting to me. It's grown in the Great Lakes states,
Hmm.
including Indiana,
Hmm.
but it's also grown overseas.
Hmm.
And like there's a lot more people from other countries than there are from, let's say, the New Jersey, New York area where I live. Um, what has DePauw done to recruit these students successfully?
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting to me. So I actually started my admission career in doing international admission. So DePauw's extraordinary commitment to international recruitment was very attracted to me. Um, the I know that the idea of international admission and global education and everything has been popular over the last couple of decades, but I really think DePauw had a head start on a lot of that. So our first international students came here in the 1800s.
Okay.
Um, so we have a long history. Now, it didn't grow to extraordinary, the size that it is now. Until the past, decade or so. And even then, this was really kind of a 20-year pathway to recruitment for international students. We had some members of our board of trustees who were very involved with international diplomacy and ambassadors to other countries, folks that worked in civil service, and they were really interested in making sure that Greencastle, the town that we're in, it's a lovely, charming town, but it's not very big, right? So what can we do to ensure that the experience here is big? And part of that is both sending students abroad through study abroad programs, but it's also making sure that this kind of liberal arts education is something that students from abroad are seeking to achieve as well. And so over the past 20 years, there's kind of been a tick up, tick up, tick up in the international population until the last 5 years or so, when we've exceeded that 15% threshold of our student population, and we're now at about 19%. Once we got to that level, the word was out, and the reputation grew, and we then had alumni, because the population started to tick up, tick up, tick up. We had alumni who were so enthusiastic about their time here at DePauw, they went out and told their friends and their cousins, and they volunteer for us, and they go to college fairs in their home countries. They're so enthusiastic about it. And that kind of has created this natural cycle, and bringing students from around the world to Greencastle.
What's the biggest shock to someone from a country far away when they come to DePauw?
The biggest shock, I think, I think Greencastle, I mentioned it's charming. It is, a lot of our students describe it as, this is what I think of America, right? It's kind of like that picturesque America. And so that's attractive to them. I think one of the biggest shocks is people here in Indiana are known for being very, very friendly. And so that openness, that's part of the culture here in Indiana, and we have about 38% of our students are coming from Indiana. And so that culture definitely pervades campus. There is always, of course, I think a little bit of some culture shock in just what's different from back home, and not being around people that speak the same language as me, or that have had the same experience as me. I definitely think that's an adjustment period. We have a great Center for Diversity and Inclusion, and a great international student services staff, and both of those organizations here on campus put a lot of effort to making sure that international students feel at home and are welcomed.
I guess one of the things I was curious about is the weather. You come from a warm weather place, and all of a sudden
Yes.
you're in India, central Indiana or southern Indiana.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, for sure. Weather can sometimes be I came from a university, it was much further north. And so, that was certainly much more of a concern. What I like about Indiana, of course, we get everything. It's too hot at one point in the year, and it's too cold at another point in the year. So if they're coming from, Greenland, or they're coming from the Bahamas, there's going to be weather at some point in the year when they're going to feel at home.
the DePauw's had a large Greek system for a small school, and I read the strategic plan before to prepare for our conversation, and the Greek system is mentioned in the strategic plan.
Mhm.
and it seems like it's a very important component of life at the college.
Mhm.
And when people think of a Greek system, they think of it as you're choosing a house based on where you fit in and the
Right.
people you're likely to get along with. And there's also some costs involved, maybe some costs involved in that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, how do you work the Greek system into, creating an inclusive community? And how does the Greek
Mhm.
system try to reinforce that? Because
Yeah.
when you hear about a school with a Greek system, you almost believe the opposite.
Mhm. Mhm. Right. Yes. Yes, I do. I think that is definitely there are definitely some connotations and just social public understanding of Greek life that is not always consistent with what the experience is here at DePauw. For us, and the reason it was a part of the strategic plan, it is a part of the strategic plan, is because DePauw and our Greek system have grown up together as important part of the campus life here. And of course, as a residential university, all of our students live on campus for 4 years. That means that we need to uh, think about what the residential experience is for for students who join the Greek life. Um, we believe that education happens not just in the classroom, but is a product of the full experience on campus, which is why we have students live on campus for 4 years. There's so many leadership opportunities and experiences to have that are part of that growth and development. So naturally, with about 60% of our students who choose to be a part of a Greek organization, naturally that has to be a major factor in how we are developing students and how we're preparing them for the next phase of their lives. Um, the first the first sorority in the first Greek letter sorority in the country was founded here on our campus.
Okay.
Um, and so we have two sorority alpha chapters. So in some ways, right now, in this day and age, inclusion of women is expected. But 100 years ago or more, that was a new and revolutionary thing. And so we embrace that as part of our identity, as a part of who we are. And so we need to also think through, how can the Greek houses, how can we foster belonging across campus, whether a student is involved in a Greek organization or not. In addition to the Greek houses, Greek letter houses, and the Interfraternity Council and the Panhellenic Council, we also have a National Panhellenic Council, NPHC, which are historically Black Greek organizations, and we have 4 of the 9 historically Black NPHC organizations here on our campus. And we have also a multicultural Greek system. So those all are a part of this 60%. And we have some houses, even, in our Interfraternity Council and Panhellenic Council they're asking great questions because they're liberal arts students, right? The students themselves are pushing boundaries and leading the way on asking the right questions about who they are and what their organization should be. And so I love to see that kind of leadership coming out of the students. But yes, you're right. It is a very even for students who choose not to join Greek life, and we have students come in much like how we approach the exploration for first year students. It's the same with whether a student decides to join a Greek house or not. They all come in not right? They all come in on the same level, and then recruitment happens after the first semester to
Okay.
give students an opportunity to really get to know people, make friends, without those boundaries. And then they don't move in to any Greek houses until their second year here, which gives them a full year of exposure to friends and relationships aside from organization in Greek organizations.
Do the Greek houses have their own kitchens?
They do. They have their own meal services as well. Um, and aside from their own meal services, we do have a centralized, so not separate in residence halls, but a centralized dining hall on campus. So students who choose to take lunches or breakfast in on campus, they are connecting to students in this centralized dining hall.
Because I saw I saw things, clips of the dining hall. It looked like a nice dining hall.
Very nice.
And
It's very nice.
I have to
Yeah.
wonder, do the students in Greek life eat with everybody else who's not?
Yeah, yeah. Occasionally. So it depends on so each house has their own approach to it, you know, how many meals a week are covered, and then they may choose, okay, I'm going to take my other meals on campus in the dining hall. And so you do see a lot of variety of students in the dining hall, and I eat there on a regular basis too. I have purchased an optional meal plan for faculty and staff because the food is really good. It's really good. Some of it's sourced from the farm that you mentioned. And it's so, and you know, I'm vegetarian, so I always appreciate tofu that is cooked in a creative way, and they do a great job.
Last question. If you were to, what is the type of person who fits in best at DePauw? I mean, the other CTCL schools are somewhat different
Hmm.
in their approach to academics and their culture and their emphasis on sports, on social life.
Yep.
Who is the DePauw student?
Yeah. I'm gonna resist the typical admission thing to say, oh, there's so many, you know, they're all diverse and they have so many interests, which is true. There really is, you know, something for everybody, but I really want to answer your question because I know, you know, other counselors may be listening to this and I want to help them find who is the fit, right? Here at DePauw. Students at DePauw are very goal oriented. They tend to have high levels of school spirit. We're very competitive athletically. And so there's a lot of school spirit on campus. Um, there are students who they do not have to be extroverted in order to benefit from a highly social campus. So I think we have both introverted and extroverted students, but it is highly social. It is we like to emphasize our community of communities, right? So we have you know, we talked a lot about Greek life. We have a Bonner Scholar program. We have, you know, the television station and all of so many different clubs and organizations. So we have all of these communities within the greater community, and there really is something for everyone. And therefore, that social aspect really comes out here. And you can tell when you meet a DePauw graduate, they are very interested in talking with people, learning about them, asking questions. They're you know, an active social listener in any room. So I think students who are interested in achieving goals, and I talk about goal oriented because we have so many students who are interested in fellows and honors programs and so on. Um, but students who are interested in a global experience, because of course, whether they go abroad or not, and almost 90% of our students study off campus at some stage, But whether they go abroad or not, they're going to have a very global experience, even in this small town. So, so those are really the students that we are looking for. Academically, most of our students are, they have either B's and A's, right? But typically are trying to challenge themselves with some honors and AP classes. Our average weighted GPA is quite high, is close to a 4.0. But of course, we have a broader spectrum. As long as a student demonstrates that they have the potential to succeed at DePauw and they have the motivation to do it, you know, that is essentially what we are looking for. And we are highly focused on trying to identify the leadership characteristics on the application for admission that would indicate to us that a student would be interested in those kind of achievements and social engagement.
Mary Beth, that's a good ending to our conversation. Thank you for spending this time with me today.
Thanks, Stuart. It has been my pleasure.